everyone. I'm Stella, fitness and health coach, and the host of this Inspire show. We always talking about health and mindset and also mental health. It's important. Today, my special guest is author of the book Gasping for Air. Here is Dana Diaz. Hi, Dana.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. um, can you introduce yourself? Are you a wife or mother, or we know you are
Yes, I am
an
all of those things. I am a wife. I am a mother of a wonderful 20-year-old son. I am also the mother of two cats who don't get along very well, but they both love me, so it works out. And I am a writer. I have published my book, Gasping for Air, and I am working on publishing the next two books in that series about narcissistic abuse. And both of those books will be out by next summer, hopefully.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And why you choose this topic?
Unfortunately, it's been my lifelong experience. My mother she had me as an unwed teenage mother, and she didn't want me, but she married a man who wanted me even less. And it turned out, I didn't realize when I was a little girl, but he was a narcissist. Well, he still is a narcissist, but he verbally and physically abused me. So it definitely did not make me feel good to grow up in a home where my mother, allowed this man to treat me that way. And he made sure that I knew that I was not wanted. I was not ever going to be loved by anybody. I was never going to accomplish anything. He just made sure to reduce me to nothing and to treat me like I was, nothing as well. So I went out into the world thinking I would never let somebody mistreat me again. And I ended up falling for somebody that reminded me exactly of my abusive stepfather. Right from the second I met him, I knew his personality. I didn't want to fall for it, but because I had been so starving for love, he was the only person that was interested in me. So I thought I would give it a try. And 25 years later, unfortunately, after a long marriage and a child, I became very ill, and I was otherwise very healthy. I coached cross country, which is the running team at the school. I ran 5 miles every morning. I was a very healthy eater, but I was suddenly having a lot of medical problems. There were about 24 symptoms that I was experiencing every day, kind of like musical chairs. I never knew when they would come, how severe they would be, but it was everything from blurry vision to my hands going numb, to various pains. My heart was affected. I actually passed out a few times. I didn't understand what was going on. And then within a 2-week period, I dropped 20 pounds. I was down to 93 pounds, and I was skeletal, and my skin was gray, and I couldn't even tear toilet paper off the roll. And it scared me because I was in my early 40s. And like I said, I was otherwise very healthy and very conscientious about my health, always had been. So I didn't understand what was going on. And after a year of going to various doctors and specialists, and they ran all their tests, they determined that I had had so much cortisol, which is the stress hormone, running through my body because of the abuse I was experiencing in my marriage, that my body actually thought it was eradicating some sort of a virus, like a cancer or something, that my body was killing off its own white blood cells. So I was having autoimmune reactions. And then I developed this lung syndrome that the doctor said is like having a pulmonary disorder and fibromyalgia all at once, which explained all the other symptoms. And I ended up wearing a backpack oxygen breathing machine with a mask, and just trudging my way through. So that's sort of when I had to really reevaluate things, because, my doctor had sat me down and said, your body is shutting down. Your organs are not functioning properly because your body's doing everything it can just to keep your heart beating and keep your lungs, allowing you to breathe. And that really scared me, because you don't want to hear that when you thought you were healthy and thought you were living, a healthier lifestyle. But he said, whatever is going on to cause you all this stress, there's no pill, there's no surgery. You're the only one that can change it. And I think when I really thought about that, and I went home, I remember laying to bed that night and thinking, what do I want? Because I was miserable. I mean, I certainly wasn't happy, but much more so than anybody in an unhappy marriage. I mean, he was threatening my life, and he was just the things that were happening, stealing money and cheating and just so many things going on. I couldn't even process one thing before something else would happen. So I just asked myself, what do I want? Because nobody had ever asked me that. And I think that was the turning point for me to change my mindset, because, between my doctor telling me that I'm the only one who had the power to save my life, to save my health, and then me thinking about it, and I realized that all those years, I mean, certainly as a child, I couldn't walk out of an abusive situation. There was nothing I could do. But in a 25-year-long adult relationship, I had the power in me all along. I just didn't realize it. I thought he was holding me back. I thought he was preventing me from living my life. I thought he was the one making those restrictions. But once I realized it was me and that I had the power to make choices that were better for me, that's when it switched up. I had been the one that put the collar and the leash around my neck. I was the one that bound myself in those circumstances by excusing and enabling and tolerating everything that had been going on. So once I decided that I was not going to do that anymore, and that I wanted to live, and not just live, but live a life that was true to my purpose and my passion and all the things that I had wanted, before he was telling me I couldn't have those things, then that just changed everything. And that's the beautiful part of it, is that it's all in your mind sometimes. I mean, certainly the abuse was real, everything that happened was real, but what was different, what was not real, was that I was being bound by somebody else. Nobody else was keeping me there. Yes, there are situations, extreme ones, where people are physically bound, to some place and held against their will, but that was not my case. I could just as easily, change my life. So that's what I did. I ended my marriage. And the miraculous thing was that once my ex-husband moved out of the house, it's like the energy was different. There was none of that tension and hostility. I didn't have somebody every single day speaking, bad words and insults and demeaning comments. And without all that negativity, all my symptoms, my physical symptoms, disappeared. All of them.
Because your body didn't make cortisol. You were
exactly. I was at peace. And that was the thing about it. It took me some adjustment time, though, because I was still fearful. He had made me so that I was afraid, sometimes to go against what he wanted or his rules of how things should be. But once he was gone, I didn't have to follow his rules. I could do things on my accord. And it was a little more extreme. He was dictating everything. Telling me what I could wear, what to eat. He would even ask me a question and follow it by saying, this is how you should answer me. So then he's telling me what to say. He was telling me who I could go be with. He was telling me whether I could go to church or not. He was he didn't even allow me. He didn't like me to go on the computer. He didn't like me reading books. I didn't even have a smartphone until after the marriage was over, because, it was just so many things. But again, once I realized I had the power, I changed my perspective. it's just been a wonderful thing. And it's interesting because it was just 3 years ago that our marriage ended. And in that short amount of time, I have, completely transformed my life and realized every vision that I had for what I wanted. So it's a beautiful thing when you can realize, the power and the potential you have, if you really think about it.
Yes, it's because we think we have so many limiting beliefs about
Yes.
ourselves, about everything. Sometimes we sometimes just need to see things from different perspectives.
Exactly. And I think in my case, it didn't help that the way I grew up as well, because with my stepfather, again, it was every day the negative, always saying, he would have comments about my body. So I developed a body image. He would comment about, I was 6 years old and eating just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, something very simple. That's going to make you fat. You shouldn't eat too many of that, So all these things that you internalize, I knew it was wrong. I didn't believe him. I stood up, but when you hear it every day, it just becomes so much a part of you, and even when you don't believe what they say and they're wrong in what they're saying to you, just the stress of, worrying about it. Oh, well, the next time I eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich, I'm going to make sure he doesn't see me. So now I'm hiding over here trying to eat, or maybe I just won't eat at all. And then it was, when I was a teenager, oh, your hips are widening like a middle-aged woman. And I'm thinking, oh my God, nobody's going to want you if you're not, you're getting fat. And, just all these things he would say that it just affected me so much. But my ex-husband, it was the same thing. It was the constant negativity, putting me down, demeaning me, insulting me, and this was among all the other abuses, but that verbal abuse was just so torturous because of how it really does affect the way you look at yourself. And when you feel such a low self-esteem and a low self-worth, you do limit yourself to the circuit. For many years, I thought, I guess this is what my life is. I guess I was just meant to be miserable and I'm just going to die one day and that'll be all there is. But thank God there was still a little fire left in me that, once I was out of that and once I could break that cycle for myself, here I am. I never imagined I'd author a book, and now I have 2 more coming, and just the impact that I'm making on other people's lives by sharing my story, because people are realizing, they're thinking for themselves, well, if she could do it, maybe I can do that too. Maybe I have that strength in me, and everybody does. My ex-husband, even though I had a college degree, he had me cleaning houses in a little small farm town, here in the US and in the Midwest. And that was just 3 years ago. I was still doing that. Nobody believes that the girl who was scrubbing their toilets and washing their floors on her hands and knees is now an author of a book that people are reading all over the world. So it's such a wonderful thing once you can understand that other people have to limit you and reduce you because of their own unhealed trauma, but it's not you. It's just what they're burdening you with because they don't have the strength to face it themselves.
Yes, they I don't know, narcissists may they need that power because they don't actually, maybe they don't have enough self-esteem. That's why
They
doing
don't.
that.
That's exactly what it is. They usually have a deep-seated insecurity, so they need to feel a sense of superiority and importance over others. So they will do things and manipulate situations to get admiration and praise. So some of them, and not all of them, are abusive. Some might just really like having the flashy car and the fancy clothes, and like to have status, they want to wear a Rolex watch and those things just so people can see, oh, look at them, they must be something because look at all the things they have. Some of them will just be on that end, and they're not bothering anybody with it. But certainly the ones like the one that raised me and the one I was married to, these are, you know, further along on the spectrum of narcissism, where they are intentionally harming another human being to achieve that sense of ego fulfillment that they're looking for. But it definitely comes from a dark place, because they really hate themselves. They are finding a deficiency within themselves, but they refuse to face it. They don't want to acknowledge it. So they need everybody else to reflect back to them how wonderful they are, so that they feel it too. So it's sad and it's sick all at the same time.
They always want you to feel that you worth less.
Yes, absolutely.
That's how they can feel more worthy.
Exactly. It gives them a sense of dominance and power. And I mean, I remember telling somebody years ago that it almost felt like he saw me and how strong I was, and you know, educated and all these things. And it's like he just wanted to suck all that out of me, as if he could take it on himself, you know, so that he would feel that sense of achievement and all these things that he wanted. It's like I couldn't have it, he had to have it, you know, instead of it, at least in a romantic situation, you know, when you're with somebody, especially in a marriage, it should be for the benefit of everybody. You know,
Yes.
It's okay if one person's more highly educated, or this one has a better job, or this one makes more money. That's okay, because you're trying to do things together. It's for everybody. It's for your spouse. It's for your children. It's for your family. But narcissists see everything as a competition. So you can't do better than them. You can't have anything better than them. You can't have anything at all, because then they feel better about themselves and they feel like they are better than you. It's just an awful thing, because they really do a good job of diminishing, you know, the worth of the person, you know, that they're with romantically. Because I mean, why did I stay so many years? There's a million reasons, but you know, I look at my mother, even she's still married to her husband, and by choice, and she is estranged from me as a choice, because she felt that she couldn't be my mother and his wife, and she would rather be, you know, his wife. She is choosing that situation, because she had said to me once that she didn't think that she could have such a nice house and a nice car and all these nice things if she weren't with him. And I thought, but you haven't even tried, you know. You know, this is somebody who's just basically given up, because they have accepted the idea of themselves that the other person has, you know, filled them with. She thinks she can't do anything. She is not competent or capable on her own, that she needs him, and she has bought into it. Unfortunately, I never did. I didn't buy into it with my ex. I tried very hard to see if I could change him, because I made a vow and I didn't take the marriage lightly, but I look back and think I shouldn't have married him at all. And I don't say that regretfully, but I say it because I remember on our wedding day thinking, what the heck am I doing? Because standing there in my dress, hearing the wedding march, I just knew, I'm like, there's no way this is going to last. What are we doing? We should not be doing this, but I did it. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I know.
How he react when you told you want the divorce?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, we had many, many talks. I think he sensed the change in my mindset, because I was acting a little differently. I was setting boundaries for the first time. I was defending myself, standing up for myself, doing the same for our son. He didn't like that. He knew something was going on, and he wasn't stupid. You know, narcissists know their person very well. They know how to manipulate you. So he sensed that I was done once and for all, for good, even though all the times I said I was done, he could tell this was different. I did not tell him. I was actually scared to tell him that I had consulted with an attorney, because by that point he had, I had stopped answering his phone calls, so that he was forced to send me messages or emails, because I wanted what the things he was saying in writing. I hated to say it, but I was collecting evidence. I was thinking ahead, and he had expressed very clearly that he wanted me dead. So I was scared. In my situation, it was a little more severe. So I did not want him to know, because I was terrified of what he might do if he found out. So I did consult with an attorney. Unfortunately, this was during 2020. So COVID came, and we had the shelter in place. So we had to stay home, no work. So I was locked in the house with him. And so I moved to my basement for good. I took everything I needed down there with me. He lived upstairs, and our son lived in the main level of the home. It was very awkward, but during that time, you know, I waited it out, and I hoped, but I was keeping a journal of everything that was being sent to me in messages. I was writing down anything that he might say in passing when we had to see each other, because I was honestly afraid that he might do something and make it look like an accident. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, people knew who it was, because, you know, these narcissists are interesting, because out in public to the world, everybody loves them. They're charming, they're funny, they're charitable, they're generous. They'll do anything for anybody. And so nobody believes you when you say these things, you know, that they said this or did that. It just, people cannot, you know, equate those two different personalities. So it's easier to disbelieve the victim than it is to accept the fact that this person that they actually like and respect and all these other things is capable of such awful things. But we also forget that there are serial killers in the world that have been charming and handsome too. And that's how they get their victims. You know, these are not, you know, normal people like us. Don't, you know, we're not attracted to somebody running around on the street looking crazy with a butcher knife. It's just not, that's not, you know, what we typically are attracted to. So, you know, it's very complicated, but at that point, it was good that I kept the journal. And once the courts did reopen, I was able to file for divorce. But right before I did, he actually moved out. I think, like I said, he knew it was coming, but in a typical narcissist move, he moved out because he had to be the one leaving me, because a narcissist can't take that offense to their ego. He couldn't have his wife leave him, so he had to leave me. Yes, and then he told everybody that I was the abusive one and that I had harassed him.
Wow.
You know, and I'm 5'3" and I was 93 pounds. I don't know how I did all those awful things to him, but you know, it didn't even matter for me. It was somebody else might cry and be depressed when their spouse leaves them. I just remember I said, thank you, whoever is, you know, caused this to happen, because it was one less thing I had to worry about, because I had been afraid that I wouldn't be able to get him out of the house, you know, without a situation or without legal action. So I was glad for it. You know, it's unfortunate he became most violent after the divorce, though. So there were some court appearances after that, and we had you know, to have his guns taken away from him by the state. And but I survived, and I took that notebook that I was keeping that record in, and I elaborated on the stories, because once I got a smartphone and got back on the internet and was able to read, and I got on Facebook for the first time, I thought, oh my gosh, there are so many people going through what I went through, and so, you know, some not as bad and some much worse. But, you know, even though my situation was not the worst that ever was, I felt it was important enough that, you know, when I looked for books about narcissism, you know, there's millions of books out there about it, but none of them, I only found maybe 3 or 4 in the entire world that people talked specifically about their experiences, that shared their stories. So I thought, you know what? This is something that's important. We are silenced when we're abused, but I'm not going to be silenced once I'm out. I'm not going to be, because there's too many people that are always going to be afraid to speak up. And there's too many people that are in worse situations that literally would be killed if they exposed what was going on in their home. So somebody has to speak up for them. And I said, there's other people out there doing it, but I'm going to be one of them as well. So that's why I ended up publishing my book of what, you know, and not everything is not even in the book. So you can only imagine what isn't in it. But it's turned out to be a wonderful thing for a lot of people, to give themselves, you know, that same perspective of, you know, that they have the power, they can make the change, they just have to choose it. And you know, I always warn people, if you're going to make that choice to leave, just do it safely, be careful. You know your situation better than anyone else, but you know, I definitely want people to know also that, you know, you're not stuck. It's so much better on the other side of it, you know, to be able to wear what I want to wear, and I can read what I want to read and do what I want to do. It sounds like such a simple thing, but you know, we are deprived of that. But again, we're depriving ourselves of it for every second that we tolerate it and stay in those situations. So, you know, that's the big message I want to get across. And I will say too, that, you know, not only have I become healthy since I have been out of that, and it's only been 3 years, I am remarried to the most wonderful man. I've known him for a very long time, because I would have never dated. I would never wanted to get married again. But I'm able to even have a healthy relationship after all that trauma. And that doesn't mean we don't have hiccups. It doesn't mean I don't have, you know, anxiety sometimes, or the hypervigilance, or you know, triggers once in a while. I have had to do therapy to learn how to self-regulate and how to manage myself, whether it was with a romantic person or anywhere in the world. But I want people to know that you don't have to shut yourselves off to love because you're scared. I understand that, but we all deserve love, and we all deserve happiness, and we all deserve to live freely, you know, with our own thoughts and our own ideas and our own dreams and wishes. And so it is possible. You just have to decide that that's what you want for yourself.
Yes, it's true. And congratulations for good relationship.
Thank you. Yes, yes. I was unsure, but we are doing very well. Very happy.
If you could go back in time,
Yes.
when would you go, and what would you say for yourself?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know, I'm one of these people who feels like, even though I would change a lot of things, and I wish a lot of things were different about my life, if I changed anything at any point, it might affect the outcome. And I would be terrified to change things. I'm sorry that I had to go through 45 years of stuff to get to this point where I feel good about who I am, and that I married the right person, and my son is good and everything's good. But I guess the only thing I would do is I would go back to my younger self somewhere in my mid-20s and just say, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. You got to go through it, but it'll be okay. Because I think that's all I needed somebody to tell me.
Yes, and because you have a child.
I know. I wouldn't want to erase that, and I wouldn't. Exactly. And I wouldn't want to miss, you know, being put in the position to meet my now husband, but so many things, really, because if I hadn't been through those experiences, I wouldn't have the understanding that I have to have been able to author the book and to be able to, interact with mental health professionals and legal professionals and the victims and survivors themselves to understand it, in a way that they are really able to relate to me better. We have a connection because they're like, oh, you get it, like, and how to express it. Whereas a lot of people don't even understand what they're going through. So I wouldn't want to have missed that when right now I'm living, I believe, my true purpose and my true passion. I just think I needed a little encouragement to know that it would all work out.
I'm happy for you that you could do it. So she do it, everyone can do it.
Exactly.
One question. What can you advise for youngers, or doesn't matter, for women? What are those red flags?
I think
Anytime
somebody is trying to control you with where you go, who you socialize with, who you see, anything about you, what you wear, what you say. If somebody is trying to tell you how you're supposed to be, that to me is a big red flag when they want to control you. Because somebody who really truly loves you or even wants to get to know you on a real level will accept you exactly as you are. Even if they don't like what you're wearing, even if they don't like the way you do your makeup, even if they don't like the things that you read or the TV shows you watch, whatever it is, if they love you, they won't care about those things. You will be just perfect in your heart and in your soul. They will not want to change you. That is a big red flag. The other big red flag that I always warn people about is just, it's not even a red flag necessarily, but to listen to your gut. If you're with somebody and something about them is off, if you don't feel right, I hate to say, even if their energy, if you're just getting a little anxious or unsettled feeling around them, that's probably the biggest red flag of all as well. Because, sometimes you meet people, you just click. It just naturally, you wonder where they've been, because it's like you came from the same, womb. They're your twin. They could finish your sentences. You just get along perfectly. We should want to seek that in more of our relationships. It's a very rare thing, but we try so hard to make situations that aren't right. It's kind of like taking a puzzle piece and you're sure it fits there, but it doesn't quite fit, but you're trying to force it. We do that. All of us do that with relationships. Why do we do that? Why can't we just wait for that puzzle piece that just fits right in? No problem. Easy peasy. So listen to your gut.
Yes, but I think that's why we are not waiting for right one, because
we're impatient.
We are not healthy mentally. We are not healthy mentally because we want to connect with someone. It doesn't matter. It's not perfect, but we want to connect with someone because we are not enough healthy. We are not love ourselves enough, I think.
Very true. And we want things when we want them because we're impatient. We don't want to wait. I had to wait 45 years to marry this wonderful man I'm married to now. But you know what? If I would have met him 20 years ago, I don't know, would our relationship have worked? Because he was married previously to somebody that was controlling and not so nice to him. And, I think that we're better partners to each other now than we would have been before because of what we've been through. So I think we just, we worry too much about timing. So just be patient and wait for the right one. And in the meantime, it's okay to have fun. It's okay to date. It's okay to, meet people. You don't have to commit to every single one, though.
My mother find the perfect man in her 79 years.
I love it. I love that. Good for her. But she found him, and that was the thing.
She said, I didn't know that there is a perfect man.
None of us do until we find him. So, you know, there's somebody for everybody. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And we just have to wait and be patient. And that person, you know, like even my husband, I was not looking. When he approached me, I actually told him no a few times because I just said, oh my gosh, after everything I've been through, that is not what I want to do. I don't want to be with anybody. I'm not wanting to be in a relationship. So he was patient and persistent, but I'm glad that I gave him a chance because, you know, it's been very good. It's been, it was easy. It was that good fit. So
congratulations. And
thank
I'm
you.
happy for you.
Me too.
And thank you. And the last question, but just one or two.
Sure.
So forgot to speak. It's just a one or two sentences. What are you? What is your message to my listener?
I think just be true to who you are. Don't ever let anybody tell you who you are or dictate who you are. Stand firm and true in your true self, and know that you are worth it. You deserve better. You deserve more. And you'll live a much happier and much more peaceful life if you live your authentic self.
Yes. Thank you so much. And congratulations again for your book and for your new relationship.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.